Hey everyone, this is the Hot Revenge community. Ready to listen to a new hot story? Then get comfortable and we're starting. I am Brittany. When I was 27, I finally understood the price of being secondary. The card stock felt thick and rich, a creamy gold. My name was embossed on it, suggesting great importance. It announced the prestigious architectural honor ceremony at the Los Angeles Museum of Modern Art, MoMA, scheduled for December 15th. I traced the seal with my finger, checking if this dream was real. My sustainable community library design was the reason. It had moved beyond late-night coding sessions and initial sketches. Now people recognized my work. Do you know what it's like to feel invisible in your family? Tell me below. I dialed my mother's number right away. She answered on the third ring, sounding preoccupied. I heard the loud noise of the television. Football was probably on again. "Hey, Mom, I have huge news." She asked what was happening. "I won, the huge one, the prestigious architectural honor. I'm speaking at the LA MoMA. There was a noticeable silence. Then I heard my father's muffled voice asking her who was calling. She held her hand over the speaker but failed to mute the sound. "It's Brittany. She got that little drawing award." "A drawing thing?" I thought quietly. "That is great, dear," she replied, using a forced, cheerful tone. She asked the date. "December 15th. It's a Saturday." The line went dead quiet for so long I worried we'd been disconnected. I then heard her deep exhale, a noise more familiar than anything. "Oh, Brittany, that weekend is Mason's playoff game." I felt instantly breathless. "But the event is only Saturday night, Mom. Doesn't his game start on Friday?" "We know, but your father and I decided we must drive down ahead of time. We need to help him get ready and settled in." She added that the weather could be poor. "We must be there, just in case." Just in case. That single phrase summarized my entire upbringing. It always meant my brother might need something. It meant his concerns always outweighed my own. "I have worked hard, too," I insisted. My voice was low but serious. "I dedicated my whole career to achieving this." "He really expects us to be there, Brittany," she responded, as if that ended the discussion. "But this is the MoMA, Mom. I'm delivering the keynote address." "Well, you can just record it for us, right?" She suggested this with a breezy, caring inflection that felt completely dismissive. "We can watch the video later when we return home after his game." That was the exact moment, the deep crack appearing, the sound of something shattering within me, ensuring things would never heal correctly. I stayed silent. I looked straight ahead at the wall of my studio, seeing the architectural plans I had finalized only hours earlier. "Brittany, don't be difficult." "Difficult how?" I asked. "You are showing zero empathy," I stated, my voice turning clear and icy. "I'm just adjusting what I anticipate from you. We will definitely try to attend if we manage it," she promised, a lie that came easily to her. "No, don't," I told her firmly. "Please do not inconvenience yourselves." I hung up the telephone quickly before I started crying. I glanced around my small studio space. On the desk, framed, was the most recent family picture I had kept. It was from Mason's college signing day. My parents were beaming, both wearing his team jersey. Mason was the center of attention, holding his pen up like a trophy. I was barely visible at the frame's edge, partially shadowed, my face blurred, making me look disposable. This defined the arithmetic of their favoritism, the calculation I had always understood. Mason represented the whole number. I was the leftover, the remainder, the error in the calculation. I recalled getting my very first architecture school scholarship. I called home, almost too excited to speak. My father's response was, "That's good. Say, did you hear Mason just landed the starting quarterback position?" I paid the full 6 years of my college education myself. Student loans felt like heavy weights, and I fought hard for every scholarship. I held down 2 part-time jobs continuously. Meanwhile, they purchased my brother a new truck, funded his spring break excursions, and covered his off-campus apartment rent. This dynamic wasn't new. It was simply the finale. I chose not to call them back. I did not text them. What purpose would it serve? Arguing only works when the other person acknowledges your right to feel angry. I remained sitting there for a long time, examining the reality of the math. Their affection always boiled down to the same conclusion. Mason's desires always outweighed my necessities. It took me years to learn the proper psychological term for this situation, the golden child black sheep pattern. This dynamic isn't truly about parental love. It is about ego. For parents like mine, Mason was a perfect reflection. He was their chance at renewed glory, their public achievement. His accomplishments belonged to them. When he won, they felt victorious. I, the black sheep, was also a reflection. However, I reflected everything they preferred not to see. My quiet professional drive wasn't a source of pride. It felt like a challenge to them. My choice of a different career path wasn't independence. It was perceived as a criticism of their lives. Mason was their mirror image. I was their competitor. This explains why they invested money in him. I thought about the 6 years I spent in architecture school, the all-night sessions powered by instant food and inexpensive coffee, the scholarships I constantly had to battle for each semester, the 2 simultaneous jobs just to cover my supplies and rent, leading to my graduation with over $75,000 in student debt. I remembered calling home, genuinely terrified, after my junior year financial aid was reduced. My father told me, "Well, Brittany, you're grown now. You have to take charge of your decisions." A month afterward, they bought my brother a brand new truck for his 21st birthday because his previous one wasn't safe. I recalled the summers Mason spent traveling across Europe, financed by graduation presents. I spent those same summers working unpaid internships in Lowe's Angels, desperately trying to start my career. They were doing more than simply overlooking me. They were actively funding his existence while extracting resources from mine. They didn't view me as their daughter. They saw me as a dependable service, the mature one, the one who would inevitably sort things out, the one who would always accept the situation. I looked down at the cream envelope holding the prestigious architectural honor notification on my table, the peak recognition in my field. I realized they believed I would simply understand this latest slight, too, that I would meekly accept being substituted for his ball game. I picked up my phone. I did not call them. I opened my email program and wrote a message to the awards committee. I requested 2 tickets. I typed the names Sierra and Professor Graham, my closest friend and my mentor, the people who truly valued my effort. They were the ones who showed up for me while my family was too busy watching sports. My true family. The following silence was not emptiness. It was open space. It felt like the very first clean, peaceful room I had ever lived in. Nobody called me. I didn't send texts. I focused entirely on my work. 18 months went by. This time wasn't measured in days. It was measured in finished blueprints and productive client meetings. I directed all my energy, every late hour, and every ounce of my accumulated resentment into Zenith Studios. This was my company, my concept. I hired 2 younger designers who shared my commitment to sustainable materials. We secured a contract for a small community center, followed by a boutique hotel project. I worked relentlessly until my hands ached, and my mind felt calm. I was constructing something tangible, something that carried my identity, and it felt far more substantial than any connection to my family I had ever experienced. During this quiet period, I met Finn. I encountered him at a construction site. He worked as a landscape architect, and he possessed a naturally serene and focused demeanor. He didn't just glance at my designs, he genuinely saw them. He asked about the air circulation, the natural light, and how the structure would integrate with the landscape. After our 3rd date, he posed the expected question, his eyes expressing kindness. "Do you have family nearby?" I prepared for the usual tightening in my chest, the impulse to apologize or elaborate, but the feeling never came. "They are around," I stated. He simply nodded, sensing the significance of the reply. "Around sounds complicated." "It's less complicated when I avoid calling them," I replied. That was the extent of it. He didn't pressure me. He didn't demand a comprehensive explanation. He just accepted my answer and asked about the rest of my day. This was the first time I grasped that real support didn't need to be loud or theatrical. Sometimes, it was just the comforting absence of any judgment. My life began to feel stable, like a solid foundation I was deliberately pouring for myself, square foot by square foot. The quality of my projects improved. We shifted our focus to sustainable housing for low-income residents, mixing appealing aesthetics with genuine human needs. Then one afternoon, Professor Graham, my old mentor, called me. His voice was unusually serious, though I suspected he was smiling. "Brittany," he said, "have you looked at the latest architectural digest?" "No, I'm buried under city zoning requirements for the Milner job." "Why?" "You should probably go buy a copy. Flip to page 90. My heart began to race. I rushed to the neighborhood newsstand, the one stocking the pricey international architecture magazines. I quickly turned through the glossy, heavy pages, my hands shaking slightly. And then I saw it. The AD40 list, the new generation of architects. My community library design and my photograph took up a full 2-page spread. I had no idea Professor Graham had even submitted my name. This wasn't just another win. It was the major win. The equivalent of the Forbes list for my industry. The recognition that declared, "You aren't simply good, you represent the future." I sat on a nearby park bench, the open magazine resting on my lap. I thought back to that initial award, the one at the MOMA. I remembered how desperately I wanted my family's approval and how heartbroken I felt when they chose a game instead. Holding this magazine now, I understood with a sharp, clear perspective that I hadn't even considered mentioning the nomination to them. I had constructed a complete life, a career, a home, a circle of support, so complete that their recognition was no longer a necessary component. I was my own designer. I was my own support system. And as for them, they were just the people who used to live nearby. They had no clue about my success. They were still mentally stuck at that stadium, cheering for a game that had wrapped up several seasons ago, entirely unaware that the daughter they dismissed as a minor detail had quietly taken control of the entire accounting ledger. I didn't anticipate the list would be announced on a Tuesday. I was deep in a brainstorming session with a new client sketching plans for an eco-friendly atrium when my phone, lying face down, started vibrating. It wasn't just a brief ring. It was a continuous, frantic buzzing against the wooden table surface. Sierra, my colleague sitting across from me, raised an eyebrow. "Are you suddenly a secret agent?" she whispered. I ignored it. But when the meeting concluded, I found 19 new text messages, 43 email notifications, and 7 missed calls. The AD40 list was officially live. My phone had become a digital explosion. Former colleagues I hadn't spoken to in years, old professors, even the clients from the boutique hotel, all sent messages. "Congratulations, Brittany. Stunning work. You earned this." Professor Graham's text was the shortest. "Told you so." I sat motionless, staring at my picture on the Architectural Digest website, right next to the description, the visionary. It felt unreal yet calm. Finn sent me a screenshot of the article followed by a long line of champagne bottle emojis. I called him and he just laughed. "I am dadding a visionary," he declared. "I'm canceling my afternoon plans. We're celebrating." It was a perfect moment of pure happiness. The most remarkable part was the quiet. The absolute, deafening, wonderful silence emanating from my family. They were completely oblivious. They played no part in this achievement. My success belonged entirely and gloriously to me. However, the universe dislikes a vacuum, and my family strongly dislikes being excluded from any news loop, even one they deliberately severed themselves from. Their discovery, ironically, happened in the one setting I would have never guessed. My brother Mason was visiting his head coach's house. It was 2 days after the magazine article was published. He was there for his end-of-season review, likely having his ego stroked. He was sitting on a plush leather sofa, bored while his coach finished a call. He grabbed the magazine off the coffee table. Architectural Digest, not his typical reading material. He later explained he was just searching for pictures of expensive cars or watches. He flipped one page, then another, and then he froze. There I was, a 2-page feature, showing the community library my photo, the one where I looked self-assured, happy, and nothing like the easily dismissed sister he remembered. He stared at the page. The name, the face, Brittany, Zenith Studios, the visionary. The details simply didn't compute. This was his quiet sister, the boring one who always lost arguments and funded her own education. How? He did not text me. He didn't even call me. He called our father. My father told me about the phone call much later, his voice still shaky from the memory. His phone rang and it was Mason, but he sounded hysterical, breathless, and frantic. "Dad, are you seeing this? How did she manage this?" "Manage what, Mason? What's wrong?" "The magazine, the AD-40 thing. Brittany is in it. How did she get featured? Is this true? How much money is she making? What exactly is Zenith Studios? Why did she keep this from us?" Our father, confused, hung up and called my mother. "Eleanor, go to the market right now and buy an Architectural Digest magazine. Something is seriously wrong with Brittany." My mother, annoyed, went to the local grocery store. She found the magazine. She stood in the checkout line, flipping pages until she saw my photograph. The family group chat, the one I had never been included in, exploded instantly. My professional triumph was not viewed as a reason to celebrate. It was seen as an unexpected attack. They weren't proud of me. They were furious because I had done the one thing they never imagined possible. I had become successful and relevant completely by myself, and I had achieved it without seeking their permission. The calls started Thursday, reaching my office line, not my personal phone. Sierra buzzed me. "Brittany, your mother is holding on line 1. She sounds determined." I eyed the receiver. "Tell her I'm tied up with a client, Sierra. Use that excuse for the entire day." An hour later, Sierra called again, voice tight. "Brittany, your mother is standing in the lobby." I walked out. Eleanor stood holding a foil-wrapped Pyrex dish. It was a classic sign of someone offering peace without meaning an apology. "Brittany, thank God," she rushed forward. "We were so worried you never told us about this magazine." I stayed still, forcing her to hold the dish. "I am currently working, Mom." "I brought your favorite," she said, lifting the dish. "We have to talk." "There's nothing to discuss. You must go. You are disrupting my firm." "Don't be difficult," she hissed, her smile disappearing. "This has gone on too long. You've clearly proven your point." "I haven't proven anything," I countered, my voice sharp and controlled. "I've only focused on my career." I informed Sierra that my mother was leaving. Eleanor placed the casserole on the front desk. I instructed Sierra to discard it immediately. My father was the next ambush. He chose a smarter time, waiting at 6 a.m., outside my gym. He stepped from behind a parked car, holding 2 coffees. "Brittany," he said, offering a cup. "Got a minute?" I ignored the coffee. "You are trespassing, Dad." "Don't be dramatic. We admit we were wrong, okay? About the award we should have attended. But you always seemed so self-sufficient, Brittany. We actually thought you didn't need us." This was their regular defense for choosing Mason. "I wasn't self-sufficient, Dad. I was neglected," I stated. My quiet voice cut through the morning air. "I needed you for student loans. You co-signed for Mason immediately. I needed you at my college graduation. I needed you at the MOMA. I quit asking because you were perpetually at a game." He stood silent, looking defeated, the coffee cooling in his hand. "I need to go inside," I said, walking past him into the gym. Then Mason appeared, banging hard on my apartment door. I opened it slightly. He just stared, his golden boy persona gone. "You are making us appear monstrous, Brittany," he accused. "I'm simply refusing to hide your choices anymore," I responded. I shut the door on him. The decisive confrontation was still to come. An email invitation arrived. My former high school requested me, an AD-40 recipient, to be the keynote speaker for their annual career day. The irony was immense. The exact auditorium where my parents had cheered loudly for Mason from the hard bleachers. Now they wanted me on that stage. I typed back one word: yes. The day of the speech, I felt perfectly calm. I entered the old auditorium. Just as I had anticipated, discreetly tucked into the last row were the 3 of them, Eleanor, Robert, and Mason. They had found their way in. I walked to the podium. I consciously avoided their gaze. I focused on the 300 students. "Good morning," I began. "When I was a student here, I was background noise. I kept my grades up. I caused no problems, and I was always the reliable child." I clicked the slide. It showed my prestigious architectural honor invitation. 18 months ago, I earned this, the highest award in my profession. It was the most crucial night of my life. I was scheduled to give a speech in Los Angeles. I clicked again. The next slide was a sharp black and white image of 3 entirely empty auditorium seats. "These were the seats reserved for my family," I stated into the microphone. A deep silence gripped the room. My family didn't show up. They chose to attend my brother's playoff game instead. They told me to simply send a video. I felt the heat of their stares from the back. "I am not sharing this for pity," I said, my voice strong. "I am telling you this because for my whole life I believed their approval was the prize. I thought I had to work harder, be more successful to finally get their true focus. I was mistaken." I clicked to the final slide. The Architectural Digest cover, my name, my face. "Your source of validation is the structure you build for yourself. It is not a waiting room for someone else's permission. Do not base your dreams on outside approval. They might not be present. Build it for yourself because you will always be there." I looked up. The students were captivated. In the back, my mother had covered her face with her hands. I had never felt so powerful. The quiet that followed was peaceful, not angry. It settled over my existence like fresh, clean snow. Zenith Studios flourished. We hired 3 new employees. We secured the Milner project. Finn and I found a beautiful apartment in the West Side, featuring large windows that captured the morning light. Professor Graham and Sierra became my chosen family. The months passed. My father's attempts to communicate stopped. My mother's angry messages tapered off, leaving a digital quiet. Then one afternoon, nearly 18 months after the high school speech, a text arrived from an unknown number. "Brittany, I honestly don't know if you'll read this. I don't expect a response, but I've been in therapy for 6 months. I needed to understand why I behaved that way, why I always assumed you would just accept sacrifice. I was selfish. I saw you as just a given. I took your support for granted, and I let Mom and Dad do it too. I truly apologize for being a poor brother. I regret my absence." It was Mason. I read it 3 times. It was a sincere apology, deliberate and honest, clearly influenced by counseling. 6 years ago, this would have saved me. 2 years ago, it would have been a massive relief. Now I felt only a quiet acceptance. He was finally doing his own work. I copied the text, saved it in a computer folder titled Closed, and then I permanently deleted the message. The apology had finally arrived, but I was long past waiting for it. I didn't need it. My success was not about their eventual understanding. It wasn't about demanding payment. It was about utilizing the price I had already paid. I realized there are 2 forms of justice. There is punitive justice, which only looks backward. It aims to settle old scores. It keeps you connected to the people you are trying to escape. Then there is creative justice, the justice of the builder. It looks forward. It uses the debris of what was ruined to construct a new, stronger foundation. I opened my laptop and reviewed the $2.5 million in seed funding I had just secured for Zenith Studios' next phase. I transferred a significant portion of the capital into a new account. I didn't buy a new car. I didn't purchase a house. I established the Zenith Scholarship, a full tuition fund for ambitious young architecture students from struggling backgrounds, specifically for those, like me, who lacked a family safety net. I am standing in my new office now, the one I designed with a large glass wall overlooking the Los Angeles skyline. It is quiet here. I am at peace. If you have ever felt like the disposable one, if you celebrate your biggest achievements in silence because you know no one will pick up the phone, take this as your sign. You do not require their permission to succeed. Your validation is the solid foundation you build yourself, not a space you wait for someone else to grant you access. Start building.